The proclamation of the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the chief priests and elders of the people, "Listen to another parable. There was a property owner who planted a vineyard, put a hedge around it, dug out a vat, and erected a tower. Then he leased it out to tenant farmers and went on a journey. When vintage time arrived, he dispatched his slaves to the tenants to obtain his share of the grapes. The tenants responded by seizing the slaves. They beat one, killed another, and stoned a third. A second time he dispatched even more slaves than before, but they treated them the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them thinking, 'They will respect my son.' When they saw the son, the tenants said to one another, 'Here is the one who will inherit everything. Let us kill him, and then we shall have his inheritance.' With that, they seized him, dragged him outside the vineyard, and killed him. What do you suppose the owner of the vineyard will do to those tenants when he comes?" They replied, "He will bring that wicked crowd to a bad end and lease his vineyard out to others who will see to it that he has grapes at vintage time." Jesus said to them, "Did you never read in the scriptures, 'The stone which the builders rejected has become the keystone of the structure. It was the Lord who did this, and we find it marvelous to behold.' For this reason, I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people that will yield a rich harvest." The Gospel of the Lord.
Our Gospel for today comes from Matthew, and we hear another parable, very similar to the one that we heard from the first reading from Isaiah. It involves a vineyard, its owner, and the workers, and the fruit that is expected of the workers of the vineyard. In the first reading, God, who owned the vineyard, who worked hard for the vineyard, and who protected the vineyard, and that vineyard is the house of Israel, was quite disappointed to see that his efforts did not bear the fruit that was expected. Sour grapes, wild grapes, instead of sweet, sweet grapes. And so God asked through the prophet Isaiah, "Is there more that I should do? Or is there something that I have not done for my people?" So the fruits of justice, of peace were lacking. Instead, violence, bloodshed. They don't seem to reflect the work of God in His vineyard. And in the second reading, St. Paul talks to the Philippians of the ultimate fruit that must be seen in our lives and in the church, the fruit of peace. But how do we harvest that? First, by turning to prayer. For prayer will turn our anxious minds and hearts into trusting minds and hearts. And peace comes to us when we approach the God whom we love and whom we trust. And also, Paul suggests the purification of our minds, of our thoughts, so that through the purity of our thoughts, our lives and our actions may redound to peace. So St. Paul seems to compare our interior life into God's vineyard. And through the work of God, through the work of God's Spirit and grace, we should bear fruits of peace. Now, the Gospel has a certain twist to the same parable from Isaiah and the same line of thought from the second reading. In this parable given by Jesus, we have the same setting as in Isaiah, the vineyard, and then the owner doing very well in securing the vineyard, preparing it, so that the workers could, with their enterprise, with their diligence, really produce good grapes. Now, one added element here is that the owner fully trusted the workers, so much that he was able to leave for a trip. He trusted them so much. Now, a time comes when the owner wanted to get his share of the harvest. He sent some servants to the workers. But the workers, wow, what did they do to the servants sent by the landowner to claim his rightful share? Oh, they killed one, they stoned one, no? They became violent. They did not want the messengers of the owner to be able to fulfill their mission, which is to be able to bring back home to the owner the fruits of his caring for the vineyard and the fruits also of his trust towards the laborers. When the landowner learned about this, he sent another set of servants, and the workers treated this second set in exactly the same way. Now, the landowner thought of sending his son. Look at how much he trusted in the workers. He thought, if I send my son, they will say, oh, this is the son. Let us respect him. He is the image of the owner. And so let us give to him the respect, the homage that we will give to the owner, that is due to the owner, and so also give him the rightful share. But what did they do? In their minds, here the second reading is very correct. In the minds of the workers, they thought, here is the one who will inherit everything. Let us kill him, and then we shall have his inheritance. And with that, they seized the son and really killed him. I can hear St. Paul giving a commentary on this. He's saying, you see, there is no peace. Violence was the fruit. And where did it start? In their minds, in their cunning minds, in their plotting minds. They thought of the son and said, he will inherit everything. Now, by killing the son, what was their goal? They wanted to claim the vineyard and the fruit of the vineyard. In the minds of these workers, they were no longer stewards. They were no longer caretakers. They were no longer servants and slaves. They already in their minds had decided, we want to be owners. And so, we will do whatever we can do, even if through violent means, to claim this property and bring to fulfillment what started in our minds. Evil intentions bore fruits of violence. And look at how subtle it was. It was a shift from an identity. I was a steward, but then I abandoned that. I now want to be the owner. And with that mentality, acts of violence ensued. And so, when the Lord or the owner of the vineyard comes to see the fruits, and I'm sure the fruits that he will see is not so much the grapes, but the violence, the lack of peace, he will probably ask what Isaiah already indicated. What more should I have done? And this is the cry of the owner in the parable, the symbol of God the Father who sent the Son. And the fruit that the Father had intended was peace, salvation, our good. But because the minds of peoples were heavily polluted by greed, even the Son, who was supposed to bring all good things to us, was annihilated. Dear brothers and sisters, we can do violence. We can reject Jesus. These are the horrible fruits that are possible in our lives if we do not cleanse, cultivate our interiority. Check especially our self-image and self-definition. The gospel is one such guide. When we deal with people, when we deal with creation, what is operating in our minds? Are we stewards or are we owners that can dispose of everything, even of human lives, depending on our ambition? Do you want that to be the fruit of Jesus' death for us? Please, dear brothers and sisters, let us review our lives. Let us examine our lives. Let us examine our society. Let us examine our minds and hearts. What are the fruits? Are they pleasing to God? And how do we cleanse and cultivate the vineyard? In 2 days, we shall be celebrating the feast of Saint Francis of Assisi, the great, great saint who has influenced millions of lives, the saint who had a change of mind. His inner vineyard was changed by God's grace. And so he saw that everything should be focused on Jesus. Everything should be focused on not only intimacy, not only imitation of Christ, but also union with Christ that was granted when he bore the marks of the wounds of Christ in his body. But he stripped himself of all glory, of all claim to riches, and he befriended poverty. The poverty that purifies the mind and heart. The poverty that makes us humble. The poverty that makes us sensitive to the needs and the cries of the poor. The poverty that makes us respect creation. And there will be peace. There will be brotherhood, sisterhood. Let the coming feast of Saint Francis enable us to prepare the vineyard of the Lord. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. May that be the great harvest in the vineyard of the Lord. The word has been exposed. Let us now fulfill it.